What is up, everyone? So nothing weird happened, right? Nothing weird at all. Nothing super strange uh going on in F1 Fantasy. It was almost going too swimmingly this weekend for F1 Fantasy. They were like, well, people have got a handle on the prices. They've got a handle on team selection, on wildcard, on limitless. Let's just toss in a little chaos grenade with Kimi Antonelli as driver of the day. Wow. Wow. Could not believe it when I saw it. If you are watching, if you're in the chat, let me know. Let me know where you're watching from, how your lineups did this weekend in F1 Fantasy. Yes. How did Antonelli get driver of the day? This is, Chris O2, the driver of the day, was great for me at least. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I will show you how ridiculous it is because I was down on Antonelli. Let's just go through a little bit of the race review here. Jovan is in the chat saying, what a weekend for my fantasy team. No premium driver, 194 points and plus 3.9 million. I think we're in the same boat there, Jovan. Do we have the same teams? But I'm just going to go through, I was kind of live tweeting the race a little bit. So first of all, I started off with a little prayer circle saying my drivers don't DNF. So that came true. And then the graphics even came up. We had pit stop points or pit stop time. So that was nice. Racing Bulls with a 2.1 pit stop. Let's talk about Russell. Behrman's having a good day. Aston Martin, they only had one pit stop the entire day. I mean, one proper pit stop with Lance Stroll pulling off a one-stopper. So that prevented them from rising 0.6 million as well. Talking about how unlucky Tsunoda was in F1 Fantasy, just being like, he got... Racing Bulls, man. They have thrown away so many points at the beginning of this season. Tsunoda easily should have scored twice. And Hadjar should have scored today as well. Like, absolutely absurd behavior. Can't believe Racing Bulls has messed this up. Haas at the Chinese Grand Prix coming back. This is who I voted for driver of the day here. Esteban Ocon. I was like, seems Haas is back. We're having a good time. Everything's going okay. But no, that was not meant to be. And then like 2 minutes later, I was like, pretty disappointing race from Antonelli in F1 fantasy terms. Get the price rise, but not a lot of points. I'll hold him for Japan for the final 0.6 million price game, but I was hoping for more today. And then bang! I thought my screen was showing me wrong info. Antonelli won driver of the day. Am I being punked? Oh my God, happy days. What a joke of a category, but oh my Lord, Kimi. And then I had to go into prepping for this show. And then, look, this aged incredibly poorly and incredibly fast when I was calling him out. And then I was talking about the mop, George Russell. Another podium for George. Great job by him. But yeah, guys, let me know your lineups, how you did. Go on f1fantasytools.com. Check out your lineups. Let's go check out how we are doing here. So I've got most of the stats here on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm pretty sure I'm live this week, unlike last week when I was like not live on YouTube for the first 15 minutes. So that's great. So I think I fixed that. I got some comments here. But yeah, so in the constructors world, not a lot of upsets. It stings for Aston Martin managers, that 0.6 decrease from Alonso's DNF. Alonso is not going to be an option for us in our F1 fantasy teams until at least Saudi Arabia at this point. Maybe even not Saudi. No, probably Miami, because he's going to have 3 more races until that second DNF comes off. Pretty horrible start there for the veteran driver on the grid. But yeah, let's go, because I don't smoke cigars, but if I did, I'd be like, I love it when a plan comes together, because it did this week. It came together. A-team reference, if anyone else got that there. So, yeah, happy days. 194 points. Feeling a lot better about the squad this week. Every single asset rose the maximum amount in price. The hindsight play, and golf clap to anyone that went here, that's my T3 team down there. The McLaren, Haas, Piastri build. So Piastri plus Haas over Antonelli plus Williams has obviously come out on top here. 128 points compared to 66. And you do get 0.3 extra, but as you can see here, like 3.9 million budget increase is fantastic. 194 points, lucked out with Antonelli, obviously. The game really needs to do something about that. Like, I mean, am I happy that I benefited from it? Yes. Do I feel bad for all the Piastri, Ocon, Behrman managers? Also, yes, because they were in with a shout of huge days for those assets. Ocon and Behrman and Piastri all still rose the maximum amount of value, but especially if you 2x Piastri, like that's 20 points you're missing out on. Hamilton got fastest lap as well, so Piastri settles for a 45-point weekend. Still bang up job by him, but yeah, you gotta feel a little bit for those managers. I mean, as you can see here, that is part of my team. So, yeah. Let's see here. Let's get into the comments here. What is up, everyone? Hope you are having a happy Sunday. F1 Fantasy just doing our, like I said at the beginning, it was all going quite well, quite calm weekend. One DNF in Alonso, wasn't even like a crash or anything like that. Sauer was at the back, and then the game was like chaos grenade. Here is Kimi Antonelli with your driver of the day. Just absolute madness. Mr. Iceman says 137 with saving most of my cost cap from Australia and on plus 3.3, but going Aston Martin over Haas, Slauber, V-Car probably forces me into a double budget constructor for another race. Not bad compared to Australia. Michael is in the chat saying 224 points plus 2.4 million. Kip2 is asking for your team, Mike. Alonso will be pretty cheap there. Yes, he will. Look, he will probably... So what is he at now? God, he must be all the way down there. Like... Let's check out. Coming into the weekend, he was what? 8.2. He'll be 7.4 after this weekend. No, 7.6. Loosey-goosey math here on F1 Fantasy pole position, as per usual. So he's probably going to fall at least 0.6 the next 2 weeks as well. So that's another 1.2. Goodness gracious. He's going to be like 6.4 million heading into Saudi Arabia, and then we'll have to wait for that Miami. So yeah, Fernando Alonso is going to be a pretty spicy want when we head into Miami. So keep that on your radars, everybody. Both limitless and unlimited strategy will be working to perfection this weekend. Yeah, wildcard's good. Damn, Ewan. Thank you, Michael. 3.6 million in all three teams for me. I had that build McLaren, Haas plus Piastri, Winky Face. Yeah, that's fantastic. 194 points plus 3.9 million. I'm assuming that 194 points. Let me go back to my team here. I'm assuming that 194 and 256 will be the most popular scores in F1 Fantasy this weekend, because if you wildcarded into either of those teams, you are sitting pretty. You got the max price budget rise, and you scored a bunch. You only missed out on 0.3 million if you went with the Piastri Haas build. So obviously that was the correct build. Well, not obviously. I mean, in hindsight, it's the correct build. But yeah, I mean, overall, besides the absolutely hilariously lucky driver of the day from Antonelli, pretty disappointing weekend from him. Clearly the Mercedes had the pace. It's only a second race, so I don't want to be too hard on them, 18-year-old. But yeah, just always behind Tsunoda, didn't put any pressure on Ocon ahead of him he was always behind Tsunoda in the sprint. Didn't put any pressure on Ocon during the race, even though it was only one lap. But yeah, he just got caught up in a little bit of traffic after his pit stop. And yeah, it didn't really work out for Antonelli. So while I'll keep him for Japan, obviously. But yeah, after that, he'll be an A-tier asset, and I might have to look at moving on from him, honestly, because I'll need to rearrange the chairs on the Titanic and kind of get him out of my team and try to get back to like a Piastri or a Russell build. So yeah. So yes, good job by you, Spider Warren. They just asked Toto about the driver of the day. He said it must be his looks. Yeah, I guess so. All we can say is like this needs to get taken out of the game. This is like way too big of a swing. Like just absolute nonsense. What you're thinking going forward with the McLaren and Williams build or switch to Haas? So my plan all along here, Kip2, Mike, was that I was going to activate the wild card here, and I'm going to try to roll in Japan's, which means I will only use one free transfer and then roll and then have 3 free transfers for Bahrain in the middle of April, which will mean that I can catch up with any of the price rises that are going to come, like Bortoleto, Hadjar, Lawson. They've all avoided a DNF, so if they can do that again in Japan in a couple of weeks, they will be good for price rises in Bahrain, and that's when you're going to want to get on them, as long as they don't DNF in Japan. Just fingers crossed. But yeah, it's all about avoiding DNFs because the penalty is so high in F1 Fantasy. Yeah, so that is where I'm thinking. So the Williams to Haas transfer is a little bit of a luxury transfer for me. I'm going to obviously with Japan, it's not a sprint weekend, so teams will be able to dial in their cars more. Maybe that will help out Antonelli, maybe have a better overall weekend because he's only really had one practice session and a sprint at a track that he hasn't driven before. Whereas Japan, he'll have 3 practice sessions. Hopefully that'll be better. Mercedes clearly has a pretty good car, competing for second or third best car on the grid. I mean, they're definitely in the top 3. They have a better car than Red Bull. So, and it just remains to be seen if they have a better car than Ferrari. But for right now, I mean, it was pretty hot in Japan or in China this weekend, and Mercedes still performed well. So that whole narrative of Mercedes is only good in the colder temperature, that we might need to rethink that, guys. And Mercedes could easily be a constructor's option moving forward if you need to create money here. Because look, 60 points, that's fine because you're getting about how many, 9 million in savings on Mercedes versus McLaren, and that can really help out a lineup if you're in a little bit of bother here. So yeah, so I think for now, I think Williams to Haas is something that I might have to think about in the future. But seems like a little bit of a luxury transfer. However, if you're looking at my team here, the T1 team, McLaren, Williams, Antonelli, Ocon, Stroll, Albon, Hulkenberg, there's not a lot that I will have to fix heading into Japan right now. Just first kind of off the top of my head kind of thing. There won't be a lot that needs to get fixed here. So maybe Williams to Haas is an option. I'm really surprised by how quick Haas turned this around because if you get something wrong in Melbourne, you're on the other side of the world getting upgrades, development to China 1 week later is really tough. So I'm not sure is Haas just going to do well in the heat? Is that what has happened? Because Ocon and Behrman showed really good race pace compared to whatever they were showing us in Melbourne. So maybe Triple Haas is back on the table, y'all, because we were calling that. A lot of us were calling that at the beginning of the year because their assets were so cheap in testing. And yeah, I think this time last week I was on here being like, oh my God, what have Haas done? It's a disaster. But yeah, not too shabby at all. Today's t-shirt is brought to you by Logan Sargent. I kind of was wondering if I was going to be the Logan Sargent of F1 Fantasy content creators today, just hoping to not DNF and just trundle over the finish line. And I think that is great success today. Can't deny it. I was pretty happy. So yeah, when I saw Antonelli was driver of the day, I let out quite a big yelp, and I'm pretty sure my wife probably thought that one of my drivers DNF'd again. She was like, oh no, he's gonna be sad again. But no, it was Antonelli, game driver of the day. But that needs to be eliminated from the game. There's like nothing about it. Konigbit says, where can I see the plus minus or million in F1 fantasy? So the provisional scores will be going up soon, but the finalized scores won't be up for a few hours, Konigbit. So, but if you go into f1fantasytools.com and you can load your team in manually, just down, let me get rid of your comment here, all the way at the bottom of the screen here, you can kind of like add your team up manually and you'll be able to figure it out that way. The way that I have my teams linked here is because I am signed up for their Patreon, which is a fantastic resource, and you guys can get 50% off your first month from F1 Fantasy Tools premium discount if you use promo code UN50, which I would highly advise you do, because I use it all the time. I use it for every single episode I ever make, for every live stream, like all the stats over there on the right-hand side, that's all from F1 Fantasy Tools. So great shout out to them. Thank you so much for providing all that stuff. Just a quick check-in, guys. I see that there's quite a few people watching. If you want to do me a favor, don't have to super chat or super thanks or subscribe or whatever, but just click that little thumbs up button. That would be fantastic. Would really appreciate it. It really helps the YouTube channel out. All right, getting back into more of your comments though. Yuki failed me again, and I needed to take Behrman. Yuki didn't fail you. Racing Bulls failed you, because Yuki was once again on for a fantastic weekend, and he got done over by the strategist over at Racing Bulls. I do not know who the strategist over there at Racing Bulls is, but they're going to have an interesting couple of weeks. I'm not sure if they should start thinking about updating their CV or their resume, because they made the wrong call in Melbourne to put them on full wets, I believe, instead of intermediates. And then today they jumped everyone with the 2-stop, and it's like no one else went for it. They could have been they could have been the Haas of today. 7th and 10th was well on the cards for Racing Bulls with Tsunoda and Hadjar. And then also the front wing just broke. There was absolutely no damage. Like there was no contact or anything. It's just a total failure. So that'll be something we need to watch maybe just in the next couple of weeks. Like I don't know the ins and outs of the FIA F1 rulebook and stuff, but I'm assuming just having a complete front wing failure is not going to sit too pretty with the higher up. So that might be something we need to watch. It could just be like a fine or something, but it all adds up in the cost cap and stuff like that. Marinick says 239 plus 3.6 million for me. So 239. Do you have this T3 team here, Marin? Because maybe you're looking at the F1 site. Maybe they don't have it all the way updated. Actually, I have the F1 site right here. Let's see. I have 210 points right now on that team down there, the T3 team. So, but yeah, like I was saying, guys, like they have these provisional points right now, and they will update them. They will finalize them in a little bit. You see here it says calculating right in the middle. So it usually takes a few hours. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So watch out for that. But yeah, in general, I should probably let people know that I am actually live right now. We are live. Come join the rest of us F1 fantasy crazies. Boom. Yeah, so that is kind of everything. I'm going to keep getting into these comments here. Hulk out for Behrman or Hadjar ATM looking great. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go see if F1 Fantasy Tools has updated their budget builder for the next race. Required points. Okay, so they got round 1 right now. So they haven't updated it yet, which that's understandable. That would be insane if they had already updated it. But this page here on F1 Fantasy Tools, the budget builder, this is going to tell us heading into Japan how many points each asset needs in order to score the maximum price gain and stuff like that. So we've got all of these assets here, the constructors, the drivers and stuff like that. And that'll be able to tell us how many points Hulkenberg, Antonelli, Stroll, Albon, Ocon, Behrman, all these guys are going to have to score in Japan to keep a price rise or avoid a price drop. So that will help us out a lot. But yeah, Hulk out for Behrman, that's a good shout, actually. That could be the luxury transfer that I make because Hulkenberg was very lucky today. I mean, just tumbled down the charts at the beginning of the race and was just never going to recover. I think we saw a little bit closer to the true pecking order in the grid today, with McLaren just absolutely dominating and Sauber just being so far back. So I think we've got those two pieces of the puzzle fixed. I think Red Bull is probably clearly fourth at this point through 2 races. And yeah, everything else is a little bit jumbled up. Mercedes, Ferrari, 2-3, depends on how you look at it. Ferrari looked really good on their tires in the sprint yesterday on mediums, and then on the hards today, it was not that great. So that's a little confusing. Racing Bulls, it's really hard to say. Like, obviously, Haas had the best Chinese Grand Prix this weekend, at least in the Grand Prix. Williams looked pretty solid over the course of the weekend, but they never really had that great result. Albon was sounding pretty confident and didn't really have a problem in the race, but wasn't able to move up as much as you kind of would expect. There was early on in the race, he was like, I'm faster than everyone. I got this. Don't worry. And it just never really came to be with Albon. So that's where we're at there. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to get away from Williams right now. You could go down to Haas. If you're thinking about making a double move in Japan and you need to get off a falling asset, Williams down to Haas is probably going to be a pretty popular pick because then you don't have to sacrifice one of your top constructors. But where you would go with that money. But yeah, Hulkenberg. So Hulkenberg's going to be 7.6 million after this race, and Behrman's going to be 6.7 million. He's going to be back to his original price. So it's going to be pretty tempting there because you kind of get to bank on your little price gain that you've had if you've had Nico Hulkenberg and move down to what I think. I'm really trying not to be too overreactionary because a little confirmation bias because I had Haas, I think, finishing 5th or 6th in the constructors, but to see them on a dry weekend do pretty well. Ocon qualified in Q2. They double points finish. But yeah, Behrman getting back into it this weekend, that could be a move right there. Hulkenberg to Behrman. That might be an early kind of move in Japan that I'm looking at there because Williams got through the weekend. Sainz still pretty unimpressive. I mean, he's going to fall again. So yeah, we're getting interesting stuff there as well. Cry says, Alonso is really hurting me. Yeah, I think that is you got to push the eject button on Fernando for at least the next 3 races. I don't think there's any reason to be on him right now. Stroll had a really good race. It's been a pretty impressive couple of first race weekends for Lance Stroll, especially in F1 fantasy purposes. But yeah, Alonso right now, he is just going to continue sinking in value for at least the next 3 races. So you could be looking at a lot of value coming out your squad with that veteran driver there. Let's see. What about Williams to RB and Kimi to Piastri? Don't hate it at all. Paper cranks. But I just don't think I can trust the RB pit wall right now because they've now cost Tsunoda world championship points in the first 2 race weekends. I'm not sure if Tsunoda, I guess he's never been put in a situation where he has to make his own calls from the driver's seat kind of thing. He's entering Racing Bulls are entering Ferrari 2023 meme territory already through 2 weeks because it's bad. And they're costing Tsunoda chances at world championship points, showing that he can get where he needs to go. The only reason he scored points in the sprint yesterday is because they probably didn't have to pit stop. I'm sure Racing Bulls would have had a great opportunity to mess that up for him as well if they had to pit during the sprint. So I would like to see Racing Bulls get through an entire Grand Prix weekend without messing up the strategy before trusting them. I think Williams to Haas and Kimi to Piastri is probably more on than Williams to RB, but we'll see. Like I was saying at the beginning of the or a few minutes ago, it was I'm gonna try and roll in Japan. So I'm pretty much going into the Japanese Grand Prix right now thinking I only have one free transfer. So that's where my thinking is. So I really have to like kind of focus on which area of my team I want to fix. But in Japan, we're going to have 3 free practice sessions. So we'll be able to tell. We'll get qualifying sims. We'll get good long run pace. It'll all be quite fun. Moving back over to the questions here. Haas becoming better, probably because of all the other mid-teams being punished for the mini DRS. Yeah, I think that was that Alpine, Racing Bulls, and Williams, along with McLaren, that they said was being kind of looked at for that mini DRS. That could be something that we need to, maybe we'll get some more info on that in the post-race stuff, like from the media, the race.com, trying to think what else. Yeah, like all those spots. So maybe we'll hear more about that. Racing Bulls thinking they had the undercut and then the others never pitting. Must have been horrible for them. Yes. Oh, shoot. I missed a bunch of questions. Sorry, everybody. Let me go back here. Automatically. Why are the points for me different than yours? Tristan, are you looking at the F1 website? Because I'm on F1 Fantasy Tools, and they do a little bit better job of having like the live updates. The F1 website won't add the like overtakes, pit stop points, all that stuff until later when they can finalize them. But right now, F1, this is all like a projection from F1 Fantasy Tools. Yeah, Haas was nowhere in Melbourne, 266 points. Oh, what is up, Ben? 266 points, Limitless Team 1. Nice. Let me know what that lineup was, Ben. Ferrari being that close to McLaren. What? Yeah, I know. Well, Lewis got fastest lap. So that helps quite a bit in that department. And I mean, they had a good sprint. Charles and Lewis had quite a few overtakes because of their earlier pit stop. They were kind of slicing and dicing their way through the field. Like, as you can see, 11 overtakes here with the fastest lap and the fastest pit stop. As of right now, did Ferrari have a faster pit stop than Racing Bulls? Because I'm pretty sure I saw Racing Bulls with a 2.1 pit stop. But like I said, these are all projections, and the F1 Fantasy Tools guys do a fantastic job. So if their fastest pit stop points are a tiny bit off, we'll cut them some slack on that one. Bombata says 3.6 million increase for me. And we've got to consider that. Yeah. How long will 50% off be available? End of March or into April? No, DesX, just use that promo code, UN50. Just use it whenever you want. It'll be there. I'm pretty sure it'll be there the entire year. Just use it whenever you want. I would suggest using it now because you'll get the next 3 races for that first month. So yeah, not too shabby at all. So you get 3 free races, try it out and just see what you're like. Peter says, I've got 199 points before everything is finalized, and all the changes I've made with Wildcard I think paid off to gain budget as well as score some decent points. Yes, I would agree with you, Peter. 199 points is nice. Racing is Epic says, Sonoda to Behrman next week essentially locked in. Haas pace was insane. Yeah, it looked really good for them. So that would be nice. Feels like Racing Bulls has decided to go 2-stop before the race started and didn't adapt to 1-stopper after the hard tire being robust. Yeah, they were saying that on the F1 TV broadcast, that essentially Lance Stroll doing so well on the hard tire actually kind of messed up his race to like come back through the field at the end because everyone was like, oh, we can go 1-stop. Yeah, so maybe they could have gone a little bit earlier on we'll see how. I'm not sure if he could have gone much longer on the medium when he was switching from the hard to the medium. But yeah, essentially Lance Stroll's success on the hard tire actually kind of cost him later in the race. Yeah, true about RB. They are also no-go for a few more races. Yeah, that's a shame. Managed to get a great budget increase to bounce back from Australia. Thanks, guys. Yes, good job, Brett. What do I do now? I missed the deadline yesterday and stuck with the Australian Grand Prix. What do you do now, Unwanted Wolf? I would just see where it's at when the game finalizes, and maybe you can just get on the wild card. Get on the wild card in Japan. You'll get a lot of data, and you'll be able to see some more price jumps, see who's going to go where, and just claw your way back that way. That's fine. I mean, you're pretty much in the same situation that a lot of us were in after the Australian Grand Prix. You're just wild carding 1 week later, and that's not the end of the world. So we'll be fine. I had Ferrari, Sauber plus Piastri, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Antonelli, 236 plus 3.6 million. Wow, nice. A little bit of a differential lineup there with Ferrari, Sauber. I don't mind that at all. Big thanks for that, you. Yes. Second team, 250 plus. Wow. Damn, you guys are crushing it. Andy Martin is in the chat. What is up, sir? Welcome to F1 Fantasy pole position live stream. Yes, it was a little bit. That is Andy Martin of FPL lore, the man that stood beside the sign to see how tall Bukayo Saka was. That is like a moment, a core moment in FPL history. So glad to have you join us, Andy. Sauber looking like the tractor car we expected, and Behrman got his redemption from that horrible start. Australia start, yeah. Behrman looked spicy. I mean, if that's the Ollie Behrman we're going to see, that is going to be number one on my wish list for transfers, I would think. Maybe Hulkenberg to Behrman. That's probably a little bit of a really early team selection thoughts there. As you can see, guys, we are going to have a weekend off. The Japanese qualifying lineup block is going to be 7 a.m. UK time, 1 a.m. Eastern in the States on Saturday, April 5th. So it'll be a little bit of a lighter content week for me coming up here. I'm going to have 2 episodes, and I will tweet those out. So one is going to be a budget building guide because we're now going to have 2 races done. So I'm going to go over that, like where we can look to build budget, that sort of stuff over the next few races. And then the second episode is going to be a overreactions episode. So if you guys have any funny or like based on logic overreactions, hit me up on X at F1 Fantasy Ewan or TikTok, or just comment on this stream or on the budget building guide with your overreactions. And then myself and hopefully a special guest will be going over them in an episode later this week. So think of some of that. If I did Hulk to Behrman, would you be concerned of having triple Haas? It would honestly depend on how they look on the Friday and Saturday practices there, the things. So that's not bad at all. But yeah, triple Haas, as long as they look okay, and I think they're going to keep rising. We're going to have to wait for these points to be finalized. The F1 Fantasy Tools guys are probably already cranking away in the background, getting us all that data. So huge shout out to them as always. Racing Bulls' new Ferrari with the strategy called. Yes. Get the clown memes on the Racing Bulls pit wall for this season. Although Laurent Mecchi, he's from Ferrari, right? The team principal at Racing Bulls, he's a former Ferrari guy. So maybe he has brought over some poor traits from the red Italian team. I have double Haas. Is there a good chance for price increase after Japan? I would think so, but we're going to keep finding out. There's a rumor Tsunoda to Red Bull at Suzuka. Do we go for Tsunoda then as an option? If Yuki Tsunoda ends up in a Red Bull before Japan, all aboard, because assuming that the game does not change his price, that is a 9 point something or 8.5 million asset in a Red Bull. This is what I was thinking last year when Danny Rick was rumored to take over for Checo. He was like 8.5, 9 million. I was like, you got to get on him. But we will know that over the next 2 weeks. I don't think they're going to cut Lawson after 2 races, but it is Red Bull, so who knows? You know what? Let's see. Let's start a poll for the final 30-ish minutes of the thing. Will Liam Lawson drive for Red Bull in Japan? Yes. No. Hit the votes. Let's see how that goes. I think there's going to be a rumor every week about if Liam Lawson is going to make it to the next week, so we're just going to have to take it week by week at this point. So after these 3 races, as long as you don't retire, you should go up in value. Pretty much is the thinking right now. And then once we get into more 3-race rolling averages, it will probably be a little bit harder for the B tier assets to go up in price a little bit. Just depends on like their 3-race rolling average. Didn't VCarb have the longest pit stop, like a 3.5? I thought I saw a 2.1. But it is possible that the timings were messed up, because I think this was the first day that I wasn't yelling at the TV about the timing tower being messed up. So yeah, it's been a rough start for the timing tower on F1 TV. And I'm assuming all F1 graphics are like that. So yeah, I don't watch the Sky Sports feed. Racing Bull's thinking they had the undercut, and then the others, yeah, that's been horrible for them. Agreed, Andy. What's the reason you only want to use one free transfer in Japan? So because now I've used my wild card Nixie, I want to have the next big price swing with so Bortoleto, Hadjar, Lawson. Let me see here. Bortoleto, Hadjar, Lawson, Doohan, Sainz. When we get to after Bahrain, all of those DNFs, as long as they don't DNF over the next couple of races or in Japan, that will fall off of their rolling average. So then their average will shoot up, and that's like another 1.8 million in value if you can get on those 3 drivers. As long as they don't DNF in Japan or Bahrain, they're going to get a really easy 0.6 million price increase. So I want to have 3 free transfers for that, because if I need to use 4 free transfers, I'm fine taking a 10-point hit, but I don't want to take a negative 20. And if I only have 2 free transfers, I'll have to take a negative 20 to use 4 transfers. So if I can get away with only using 3 free transfers in Bahrain and not have to take a negative point, that will give me a lot more flexibility in my lineup to kind of adjust to these new point swings. So it's all going to be about planning for these price swings when like a driver's coming off of a DNF. If they're losing a DNF on their rolling average, you're going to want to have them in your team, especially at like low DNF tracks. I mean, Bahrain is a fairly low DNF track. Saudi Arabia is a street track, so that's a little sketch. Miami is a street track, but like Imola, Monaco's a street track. So there's going to be some ways to maneuver about this, but we're going to have to... Oh, wow. Breaking news. Yuki Tsunoda could be getting into the RB21 from Japan, according to Motorsport. Okay, then. What about a transfer like Hulkenberg to Tsunoda? Because Tsunoda has fallen in price, I think he's going to fall in price again this week. Yeah, so it looks like he's going to fall again. He's probably going to keep falling for the next couple of weeks because he's going to have these negative scores attached. I mean, he got 2 points this week, but I don't think overall he's going to be rising in value anytime soon, at least over the next couple of races. So that is why I probably would try to avoid getting on Tsunoda right now, especially if Hulkenberg is set to rise in value as well. Like, it's still budget building season, everybody. Like, just because a lot of us got really good, almost 4 million in value, like that doesn't mean that the budget building train stops. Like, the more budget you build right now, that means later on in the season, you will be in a better position to get on more expensive assets. So while a lot of us can like take a deep breath, including me, that we survived the wild card, we survived DNFs, it's still, budget building still needs to be a priority. We're only in race 3 of 24 races. So there's going to be a crossover point where it's time to get points, but we still need to kind of prioritize building that budget. That's why my early team selection will be to still keep Kimi Antonelli, despite a disappointing Sunday. Got lucky with the driver of the day stuff. But this is going to be the last race potentially that he's going to go up 0.6 million. So that's why I'm going to keep him in my lineup, because that 0.6 million increase is going to be really valuable. Domji says, I've got to change my team before the deadline. Got the points from Piastri, but team value take a big hit. If Yuki, Domji, we can go over that, or leave a comment on like one of the episodes later in the week, and we can go over that as well. If Yuki moves to Red Bull and we own him as a Racing Bull driver, what kind of change would that make in the team? So they're not going to just like make him a 17 million driver and just give everyone that budget. My thinking is that they will. I don't really know. We've never, like, I thought we'd get some info on this last season because I was pretty convinced that Danny Rick was going to take over for Checo at some point. But we've seen like Behrman has stepped in for Magnussen at Haas, and he just kind of takes over Magnussen's price. But because he's already a driver on the grid, I'm not entirely sure how they're going to work that. So they might just keep him at 9 million, which is absurd. And then he would probably be a must own as long as he could drive the car. But we'd have to see how they work overall there. Wow, Limitless in China last year was like 460. Yeah, like all the top assets crushed it in China last year. What should you order to eat? Because I don't really know any. I was going to say something Australian since Oscar won, but whoever did the best in your F1 fantasy team, maybe Italian if you had Kimi Antonelli, maybe some French food if you had Esteban Ocon, not some Spanish food because Alonso wasn't getting it done today. I know it's too early to think about this, but what point does one change from budget build to full points focus? Probably once the B tier assets stop rising so crazy easily, that's when we can try to maneuver around. And like, I think Bortoleto, Hadjar, they're going to fall again this week. But once we can get on them, we'll have like some of the lowest assets. As long as they don't DNF, we'll be able to kind of ride those out, and then we'll be able to put more money into the top part of our team. But it's really hard to say right now. I mean, I would think probably before the halfway point of the season, we'll be moving over to points, but it kind of just depends on how the rest of these assets move. Like if we have any huge DNFs, like if there's an A tier asset that DNFs in back-to-back races, that's something that we'll need to look at as well. Boogly-Doo says, any chip recommendations for Japan? Best chip for Japan or none? Unless we get some weird weather in Japan, I think it will be a chipless weekend, barring like an A tier asset qualifying really low, and then we want to get on the final fix, potentially, but you'd have to have enough budget to get on one of those drivers. So that may be a case to try to move up to Piastri for Japan, or at least like in the next few weeks. You kind of want to be in a good price range where, like, say you have Lando, right? You're rocking with the 30.6 million asset. If any driver, so say you have Lando in your lineup, when the lineup locks, the race pace for the Ferrari looks super good. Charles Leclerc has a disaster of qualifying, qualifies P17. That is a good time to use your final fix, because it's likely that Leclerc will be able to like slice and dice his way through the field, especially if it's like a strong overtaking track. So that is a kind of case in the pro column to have like a more expensive driver. Like right now I have Antonelli and I'm going to keep him, but say like Russell qualifies P19, I won't have enough budget in my lineup to get up to Russell to like take advantage of that final fix. So hopefully we just get a normal qualifying in Japan, but that's the opportunity that you want to look for the final fix. But as of right now, Japan is just a normal weekend, barring like you've kept a lot of these falling assets and they're going to continue to fall. Maybe the wild card, but I don't think you shouldn't be in too much trouble. If you were able to kind of adjust your lineup for China, you should be okay to get a chipless weekend. What was the best team for price gain and points? I think if we look at it overall here, Ayub, I would say that while my team one over here gained 3.9 points, or 3.9 million, this team down here, the T3 team, got 3.6 and about 60 more points. So not too shabby by this T3 team here. So I think that's probably the best team I've seen so far. I guess you probably could have gone with an Antonelli, like you could have gone with Williams, Haas, and Antonelli instead of Piastri. You wouldn't have utilized your budget all that well, but that would be 7 times 0.6, 4.2 million, I guess. So that would have been the most. But I think this T3 team is kind of the best balance that I've seen of price budget and points scoring this weekend. Let's see. Alrighty. Yep, answered that. Boogly Doo. Not cut Lawson, but a swap. How lucky was I to get Antonelli 2 points for driver of the day? We were extremely lucky. Formula Bean 10. We were about as lucky as you can get in F1 Fantasy. They really need to get rid of this out of the game. It's like, I already saw that Rain Fantasy is going to have like a 10-minute rant on his first YouTube video of the week. So that should be pretty interesting. Looking forward to that. But yeah, let's see here. Antonelli, Piastri, Berman, like Leclerc and Verstappen in there. Like, I can't believe Ocon didn't get more votes. I actually voted for Ocon as driver of the day. I was like P7 in a Haas that was like left out to sea a couple of weeks or like last weekend. But yeah, Antonelli getting 20.7%. So, yeah, after an excellent strategic drive to P8 that saw him make his second set of tires last an incredible 44 laps. Okay. Whatever you say, Formula One. Whatever you say. Let's see here. That's the official homepage. I still don't see anything here. Provisional points are in now for F1 Fantasy. And right now it says I'm on 150 points. So that's not including pit stop points. And it doesn't look like it's including overtakes. Yeah, so driver of the day, sprint overtakes, but still waiting on race position. Or still waiting on positions gained and overtakes here. So there's still going to be a little bit of change going on there in your F1 Fantasy score. So don't read too much into it as I try to resize the webpage there so it doesn't make everything else look bad. Let's keep going. Tsunoda had a 2.1 pit stop and Hadjar 3.5. Okay, so I wasn't imagining it. I saw Racing Bulls had a fast pit stop, so that should be 15 points, right? Because that's 10 points for getting under a 2.2 pit stop, and that must have been the fastest stop of the day. So they should be in an okay range there. But yeah, 210 points for this team here. That's not too shabby. Let's go see. So the journey from 901,000 to 1,000 for this season took a little bit of a hit because I went down to 1,009,000 yesterday after qualifying. So, okay, look at that jump. 300,000 jump. Like, well, I mean, we'll be back up to 1,000 in no time, guys, if we keep going that well. So that's where we're at. That's the update on the 901,000. Well, I guess I'm gonna call it the million to 1,000 challenge now because I was at 1 million at one point. I got a screenshot of how bad my rank was there. So that's where we are at. Back to live scoring here. Let's check it out. Let's see if they've had any updates on their end. Just with, so 256 points. Yeah, still there. Alrighty. Joe says, hey, you are still planning to run a budget team again in Japan. I'm pretty sure I will still be continuing to focus on budget there. Joe, how many points does Tsunoda need to rise since the Japanese Grand Prix is coming up? Chance for driver of the day. So I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time to go through this, but this is a fairly common thread of thinking in F1 Fantasy that like, oh, it's the hometown driver. He's going to win driver of the day. And usually it doesn't really work out like that, at least in like my recent memory. Like I don't really remember a lot of hometown drivers winning driver of the day all that much, bar like Silverstone, because there's so many British drivers that like it's a fairly easy way to get it. But yeah, I would have to, I'll try over the next couple of weeks to do some research on that, Luke. That way we can kind of either believe in it or dispel the myth of hometown driver getting driver of the day. Is Berman rising 0.6 or 0.2? He scored exactly 6 points. He needed 6 points to go up 0.6. So I'm expecting he's going to go up 0.6. But he actually scored 17 points over here, Casper. As you can see, 19 points. So he got that's where he's at in F1 Fantasy Tools. So he scored way more than 6 points, actually. Ben says, Team 1 lineup, McLaren, Ferrari, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc, and Hamilton. So really all you're missing there, Ben, is the Norris. I reckon Mercedes, McLaren would be the best constructor lineup since Mercedes are the cheapest and probably just as good as Ferrari. Yeah, I think I agree with that, Jovan. So if you could get on to a McLaren, Mercedes lineup over the next few races, I think some people are already there with Piastri. Like if they had enough budget and wildcarded into it, you could get there. That's not a bad move. If Yuki goes to RB, he is absolutely a void. That car is much more difficult to drive than the V car, avoiding him all day long. Yeah, that would be interesting, actually, because I know Lawson has struggled there, too, as well. Okay, Kimi is expected to be priced at $19.6 million. If the next race he prices over $20 million, he will still raise lower as a B-tier driver or become an A-tier driver. He will be evaluated as an A-tier driver after the Japanese Grand Prix if he goes up 0.6. So as we head into Bahrain, if he is $20.2 million, he will only go up 0.3. So that is where I'm thinking that I will hop off of Kimi, probably downgrade maybe like an Albon to possibly maybe like a Hadjar or a Gasly or something like that, and then try to get up from Antonelli back up to a Piastri, especially if the McLaren is going to keep crushing it over the next couple of races and stuff. About 10 minutes left here, guys. There's 97 people watching. We've had 300 people watching, and I've got 27 likes. So just click that like button. You don't even have to subscribe. Just hit the like button real quick just to help me out. Just let people know that I am around and I am making F1 fantasy content. I would really, really appreciate that. Pretty happy this week on my part. Piastri ×2, Stroll, Ocon, Behrman, Hulkenberg, McLaren, Williams a bit. Upset I didn't get driver of the day for any of my drivers, but oh dear. Yeah, the driver of the day, we need to get rid of that. It's just too much. My budget paid off, made 3.6 million, scored more points than my friends. Let's go, Sanjit. Thoughts on the best B tier team second going forward? Williams, Haas, other. For budget purposes, probably Haas, but I still think Williams has a higher ceiling as of right now, because Albon, I would say Albon is performing the best out of all of those cars, like over the first 2 weekends, scoring back-to-back points finishes. Haas could easily come back though, and it could be a good opportunity to jump back on Haas to, like, they're a lot lower. They cost how much? So Williams is set to be 13.5, whereas Haas is set to be 8.2. So you're saving like 5 million there. That's a lot. So you can really save some money and improve your team there. Like if you had a double move, Williams to Haas, I think someone asked it earlier, so it's a great point, but Williams to Haas and then Kimi back up to Piastri is fine for a double move if you have that luxury. Like say you roll the transfer this week and you're going to have 3 free transfers in Japan. Yeah, perfectly fine doing that double move to kind of get back on Piastri. But for me, I'm going to keep Antonelli one more week unless something crazy happens on Friday and Saturday at Suzuka. I'll keep Antonelli for his last price rise. We're going to see, hopefully by the end of the day. I'm not sure when F1 Fantasy Tools said that they were going to update those numbers. I guess they're going to wait until they get the official prices from the game, and then they'll update. So then hopefully by the end of the day, we should know how many points each constructor and driver is going to have to score in Japan to continue to rise. But for Antonelli, it should still be pretty okay because he had a bang-up weekend in Melbourne, and he's had another one here, luckily, in, Racing Bulls got their fastest pit stop removed, and Ferrari got it instead. Would it be realistic for me to aim for around 250,000 in the league if this was my first week? This is your first week. Don't worry about it. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. It's all about the season-long stuff, so don't worry about it. Why don't we switch over happening from budget to big points? If we don't see anything from Lawson, maybe when Lawson starts to go back up, we can ride him, but it might be like when Lawson gets into the A tier, there may not be a ton of assets that we can continue to ride to score a lot of points kind of thing. Like you can see here, like Piastri's rocking 45 points this week and Albon has 6. So when we run out of kind of high scoring B tier assets, which I would think Antonelli is maybe the last one, just depending on what is going on with Liam Lawson. So whenever we kind of run out of those options that we can take advantage of, it might be time to focus on points, but I think it's okay. Jovan says, I think Behrman and Antonelli have highest chance for driver of the day this season if they have a good race. Can't wait for Brazil for Bortoleto driver of the day. Anyways, happy I've gone LT this week. Played Limitless, got 310 points on my team so far, and everyone of my assets, other than Bortoleto, my original team, are rising the maximum amount, about 3 million, and currently sat at 2,051 ranking. Great job, Ethan. Crushing it. Too bad Norris didn't meet expectations 100%. I'm new to F1 Fantasy this year, and this round I got 108 points and only lost 3 points. I didn't use a chip. Don't mind that at all. Hector, McLaren, Williams, Antonelli, Ocon, Albon, Hulkenberg, Behrman. What should I do for Japan? My main objective was budgeting, and I did it. I think you got a solid squad there. You probably have enough budget to go from Hulkenberg to Stroll, because that's where I am at right now, Hector. So around 400 points budget, around 1 point. What about this team? I like that a lot. Hagarv, how should I look at Sauber options? I have double Sauber in 2 of my 3 teams. I hope one of them is Hulkenberg and the other one is the constructor, because Bortoleto is going to go down another 0.6 million. Okay. Males says Piastri, every single asset will rise, and I scored around 200 points, so I'm more than happy. Me too, Males. Me too. And that is me caught up. What was the poll? I put a poll up here. I've missed it now. But yes, that is, we've almost done an hour here, guys. We are at 43 likes. I have a little bit of OCD, so if you can get me to 50, that would be fantastic before I get out of here. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy the rest of your Sunday. The points will be finalized over the next few hours. Don't stress too much about it. You'll probably get a jump in points, more than likely. So that is where we're at, and we'll have the budgets finalized. I'll tweet out my final points on X whenever they go live, and we can do all that, and we'll start planning for Japan. But like I said, the content schedule for this week is probably going to be a budget building guide. I'll do some like proper work on that, so that'll probably be out Tuesday evening / afternoon. And then on Thursday, hoping to have a special guest with some F1 fantasy overreactions. Hit me up on X with your overreactions, or in the budget guide, or whatever. You can message me wherever you're at with your overreactions. Thanks, you. Thumbs up, guys. Thanks. Have a nice day. Thank you for the good content. The problem children thing was great. Yeah, I'll probably continue that segment. We'll probably continue the problem children. And I think it was a great suggestion by, I already forgot. The next thing will be the smart kids that continue to risers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a bang up weekend, a nice bounce back after a miserable Australian Grand Prix. I don't think too many people suffered. I don't think a lot of people had Mr. Fernando Alonso in their lineup. We can go over here to the elite data just to check out the Patreon top 500. So Alonso was in 9.8% of the Patreon top 500 teams in F1 Fantasy. So there are going to be a couple of people that suffer there. But you can also tell, which is really handy dandy, in the top 500, 30.5% of the top 500 in the F1 Fantasy Tools Patreon 500 used their Limitless chip this week. So that's pretty interesting. But that's probably because they were all in a very strong position after Australia, and they got to play their Limitless with a bunch of budget risers in their F1 fantasy team. So yeah, not bad by them. So that might be one of the highest, but this will change over the course of the season because some of these teams will drop out of the top 500. And if you want to be part of the Patreon League, 50% off, UN50 at f1fantasytools.com. Sign up for the Patreon. You'll get all of their premium tools. They've got some more coming up here. As you can see, Team Analyzer, League Analyzer, those are coming soon. You get your teams just hooked up. You get in their Patreon league. It's very, very nice and well worth all of that stuff. So yeah, but that is an hour, and I am going to get out of here and enjoy my Sunday. But I just want to thank everyone for hanging out with me. It's been, look at that, we're on 49 likes. Please, someone get me that 50th like. That would be great. Oh yes, Mr. Iceman, it was you. Smart Kids for the Week. After Skrilla, I did 85 points, so you consider that strong because I went anyways limitless in China. I don't mind that at all. I mean, if that's how you want to play, you want to get yourself some points, it's A-okay. Don't worry about it. 51 likes, and that will get me out of here. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully everyone enjoys their Saturday or the last parts of their late Saturday morning. And yeah, have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.